Welcome back from our lunch break. We're going to go ahead and continue on with our regular agenda, timed items. Our discussion, 6.4, I almost went ahead. Our public hearing, consideration of resolution approving resolution number 2025-5 submitted by North Shore Fire Protection District and making findings and requesting the County of Lake to implement fire mitigation fees with the automatic inflation pursuant to Lake County Fire Mitigation Fee Ordinance fiscal year 2025-2026. And I'm sure it's looking like it's going to be requested to continue until August 26th.
That is right, Chair. We just need a time.
All right.
How about 10?
10?
Actually, never mind. How about 9:15?
9:15. How does everyone feel about that? Everybody seems to feel good about it. So we'll go ahead and go forward with that, but I'll have to open it up to the public briefly, just in case there's someone here to speak on that. No hands in Zoom. All right, we'll bring it back to the board we have to take action. All right. All right.
Mr. Chair, I move to continue this item to August 26th at 9:15 a.m.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. We will see that item on the 26th at 9:15. All right. Next, we will be moving on to our 6.5, discussion and consideration of a rent stabilization ordinance. And I brought this forward. So I for the past 18 months, I've been meeting with a group in my East Region Town Hall who brought forward some concerns in regards to senior mobile home park home where people live at for those. And so it's not only that, there's other parks in my district that I've dealt with and met with previously. Wasn't really as consistent as has been with this group. And so in return, I've been looking at a lot of what we've been doing when it comes to the HAPE. We've talked about it in the HAPE and whatnot. So I wanted to just come and have a discussion about it. And I'll just go through, I don't know if you have the PowerPoint, because I'm already covering some of what I put in the PowerPoint, because this is just initial discussion about it.
I'm sorry. Our public comments are not loading.
The internet is, if you're looking to use the Wi-Fi, I had to do a hotspot from my phone in order to connect to the
I'm gonna go
internet,
get mine so I can hotspot.
All right.
unfortunately.
While she's pulling up that, we'll... All right. Thank you. All right, next slide. There you go. So as you see, the first slide was just me in the rent stabilization ordinance. And so, again, I mentioned already why the challenges and why this was brought forward. Other counties use mechanisms like the ordinance to deal with this. As of right now, Lake County does not have an ordinance in place. So in essence, there isn't any mechanisms or protections for senior citizens, disabled veterans, and vulnerable populations. Next slide. As mentioned before, the HAPE specifies that there are like 77,207 mobile homes in Lake County, which is 21% of all housing. 40% of these are mobile home parks, and nearly 1 in every 10 homes. There are more than 100 mobile home parks in Lake County. Senior and affordable housing is a top priority in these discussions as well. Next slide. These are the vulnerabilities that we've been looking at in meeting with the citizens with regards to this situation. There's folks where they feel as if there's excessive violations leading to evictions. With that, once evicted, these homeowners lose their assets because it's expensive. There's a real high expense to moving their property. And so in essence, if there is, let's say, a 7-day notification of a violation and the senior who's on a fixed income cannot comply with that, or doesn't have the means to pay someone to do it, or can't even get out of their wheelchair to do it, they're subject to being evicted and then potentially losing their home because they can't move it. So for possibly $200 to $300 worth of work that could have been done, they're losing up to $50,000 or more of their mobile home because of it. And so ideally, we understand that, it's not something that, there's also the other side. So the park owners are going to have their comments about this, but that's the goal of this, is to look at ways to put some measures in place so that everything's more, equitable, or even just in general having measures to prevent from people losing these types of assets, because sometimes it's all they live for. It's all they've had. They've saved to move into these homes, and that's all they have. So lastly, with the vulnerabilities, converting, a lot of places are starting to, and this is actually throughout California, they're converting from senior mobile home parks to all living parks. So what happens is, once either someone unfortunately passes, or they lose their home due to a violation, or they can't afford the rental increase, it starts adjusting to become all living, all ages. And so it takes away the senior mobile home aspect of it, which again, it leaves them vulnerable, leaves our seniors vulnerable. Next. So lastly, I just wanted to make sure we knew, as of this discussion, it's for direction. The ordinance won't be like, this isn't the ordinance, because I know I've got a lot of public comments of people thinking that they don't like the ordinance, and which is fine. It's a draft. So it's not intended to be passed today or anything like that. We couldn't do that even if we tried. We have to go through it and have a first reading and all of that stuff. So the goal is to move forward with these discussions from stakeholders, community, in our staff and whatnot, to create a workable ordinance. My goal, and I think others will feel the same, is to protect our seniors and vulnerable populations. And so I just wanted, my statement too is that it's not targeting any facility or anything like that, or any mobile home parks. It's just creating a base ordinance, creating a base protection for our citizens in Lake County, especially seniors. So that's really all I have when it comes to this presentation. I just wanted to kind of highlight those things. And so with that, I just want to open up for discussion. I know that the goal for me is to eventually have an ordinance in place, and I am willing to work with stakeholders, citizens, staff who could help aid with this and get us a workable ordinance. So with that, if there's anyone from the board, or would you rather go straight to public, or Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, I'll support that. I think we've already gotten a lot of public comments, and I'd love to hear exactly what the public has to say, and interested in hearing it.
All right. All right, so what I'll do is I'll open it up for the public. I'd like to ensure that, and I have a lot of these input request forms, but I don't think we need these for this type of public comment, right? No? Just so you know, for future reference, unless you're coming in the beginning to talk about something, that's citizens' input. That's where you would fill these out. With this, you just come up after someone talks. We'll give you your 3 minutes, and you can speak from there. But I wanted to highlight something, because we've been struggling with this today. Let's stick to the 3 minutes. If you need more time, we can come up. We can ask you to come back up afterwards and finish off or something like that. But we really want to stick to that time out of respect for everyone else and whatnot. So it's not as if we're just trying to cut you off. We just want to make sure and give everyone the opportunity to speak. So with that, and whoever wants to start out, please come up. And all right.
Good afternoon, Board. Rachel Dillman-Parsons, Social Services Director, and I just wanted to take a minute to thank Chair Crandall for bringing this forward. Homelessness among our senior population is unfortunately increasing, and I hope if this ordinance passes, to see that issue, if not resolved, at least lessened. I think it's important to note that we serve about half of Lake County's population on Medi-Cal at social services, about a third on CalFresh. Of that population, the age group 51 to 65, 536 of those individuals are homeless. And for those 66 and over, 68 are homeless. I know many of our partners report the homeless population, the number of elderly individuals is increasing, and it's definitely a concern. So I support this ordinance and really hope it will help to make a difference for those at risk of homelessness who are elderly and disabled. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Gail Delane, Lake Village Estates Senior Mobile Home Park in Clear Lake Oaks. The current ordinance draft is quite comprehensive and addresses many of the issues our senior park has had to deal with since being sold without notice by a private family to a corporate investment entity. I would ask that these considerations be added to the ordinance. A requirement that current senior parks maintain senior park status where a minimum percentage of residents must remain seniors. Park owners will be required to maintain trees, shrubs, and landscape in their park. Making this the senior homeowner's responsibility leaves the door open for notices of noncompliance and possible eviction. Section 12 of the ordinance, rent increases for new capital improvements. We need oversight on quality, cost of improvements, and necessity of improvements. Section 11, procedures for review of fair return petitions. We ask that fair return petition procedures be established upfront. We are encouraged that this ordinance will pass. It will mean the freedom from worry that many seniors have about being displaced from their homes. It will also serve as a signal to corporate investors that mobile home parks are not the free and easy money makers they have been over the past few decades, where shareholders' interests are placed above human interests. Lastly, we do have neighbors within our park that are in their 80s, 90s, and a couple nearing 100. The stress and aggravation of this at this time of life is unfortunate for them. In a recent case, our 95-year-old neighbor was evicted. No apparent attempt to support or assist was given by park's ownership. Reports were made to elder abuse services by concerned neighbors, as her children seemed ill-equipped to help her. Apparently, this was to no avail, as all belongings in the home were removed by management, and her house was quickly sold. She has since passed away. So this ordinance has the power to help alleviate worry, fear, intimidation, and retaliation against a vulnerable population. I give special thanks to our Earth Council and our supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, John Martin, also Clear Lake Oaks, of the Lake Village Estates. The ordinance needs to include language that homeowners have the right to sell their homes and should be given the time needed to sell if evicted. Since they take our homes, when they give us 7-day notices, I received 2 of them within 4 days of this month. So I'm on my 3rd with these guys, and I'm afraid I'm going to get evicted and lose my home. And I wish people would stand up for the seniors here, because we are really getting hammered by corporations. Life. I mean, we're all on a fixed income, and our Social Security only gives us so much. So how are we supposed to balance out when they raise their rent to us, you know, every year? Every year it goes up the state percent. Let's see, it's about, you know, I messed up.
Just a quick question. You mentioned the violations.
Yes, I
And
have.
so you said you had 3. Are these?
I got 2 right now. One is for cleaning my yard, my backyard, which nobody sees. And then I got another one for confronting them on why did I get one. And they said the regional manager accused me of saying several things. Like I badmouth them. You know, it's like I said hateful words to them. I was aggressive, and I wasn't. This is all false statements here, and that's the thing they get away with. They can write anything they want and get away with it. And to me, it's just too much for us. You know, I always have to look over my shoulder to see if they're retaliating against me for doing stuff like this. Or if I, you know, call legal aid to help to get advice and stuff like that, they retaliate. That's how I feel about this one, because I called legal aid to ask them for help, and I started getting all this stuff. You know, it's ridiculous. So we really need this ordinance in to help protect us. You know, it's just, I don't know how to speak about this stuff, but it's really not human. It seems like these people are not human. They have no heart. They don't care.
Thank you.
And it's really, they really need to be looked at.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the ordinance. I'm Jim Beal, and I'm also in Clear Lake Oaks. And I wanted to make 3 comments about the ordinance. First, the trend of outside corporate purchases of locally owned mobile home parks is often designed to inflate lot rent costs in order to increase the value of the park for immediate returns, as well as for future resale and investor profit. That's a normal part of doing business. This point is openly made on their websites to entice would-be investors. On the surface, this might appear to enhance county resources from the resulting property tax increases. Problem is that the income from the park, which used to go to local owners, now goes to a corporation based out of the county or out of the state of California. Furthermore, the increased property tax is not borne by the corporation because in reality it is passed on to local residents in the form of rent increases and arbitrary fees, thus reducing local spending power. This is especially problematic for senior citizens on fixed income. By the way, many of them own their own homes and pay property tax. Second point, corporate landlords find loopholes in vaguely defined rent caps by charging so-called pass-through charges. These are fees designed to have renters pay for improvements and maintenance of the landlord's property. They argue that keeping the park attractive enhances the equity value for mobile homeowners in the park. Therefore, they should pay for the landlord's upkeep. Homeowners, on the other hand, are not allowed to make the same argument, namely that when they improve and maintain their homes and rental space, which enhances the park's value, they cannot automatically deduct the cost from their lot rent. This would appear to be in direct violation of the intent of California's legal requirement for good faith in contracts. And finally, related to this point is the fact that increases in rent, regardless of whether or not the landlord improves park appearance, does not necessarily contribute to mobile homeowners' equity when rent becomes excessive. In fact, it can lead to a loss of equity when lot rent becomes an issue for prospective buyers of mobile homeowners' homes. A landmark precedent was set in a case in San Diego where renters at Terrace View Mobile Home Estate successfully sued for $1.2 million in damages, and the jury awarded them an additional $57 million in punitive damages. The most important thing I wanted to say, though, these are all issues that I hope we can look at in a general way for the benefit of all the parties, and I'm hoping that a well-constructed local rent stabilization ordinance that's fair to all parties will help Lake County avoid these kind of pitfalls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Gomes from Lake Village Estates, and I would thank you for taking up this very important issue. You know, we all live on tight budgets, and any relief that your board could afford us would be greatly appreciated. But just as importantly, these parks don't give much thought to our needs financially or otherwise. I know this is more off maybe a civil matter in a lot of ways. We feel threatened and by how the park management treats us like we're children with no respect, just cash cows. We all take care of our lots, but the park owners do very little on their part. They tell us to our faces we will have meetings to discuss your questions and concerns, but they never come around. They never come around, just send the temporary managers out with threatening 7-day notices on very minor infractions. It seems to me there's no overwatch on these companies to do the right thing by us. That probably is asking too much. They tell us what they think we want to hear with nothing to back it up. Their words are their words. The pass-through charges, I'm getting off, for the streets and the clubhouse are slipshod work at best, and when we complain, nothing seems to be done to take care of the problems. Like, why should we pay for the offices we'll never use? They're using them. I better stop here. It's hard to convey without seeing it for yourselves. So thank you again.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Come on up.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Richard Travasos. I am with the Property Management Group for Lake Village Estates. And good to see you also, Chair Crandall. Before I get into what I was going to say, I would just like to quickly say that as of now, there hasn't been much input from the property managers on this one. And also, it seems like a very isolated concern. I see some Lake Village residents here. And so a more targeted approach, I would say, would probably be more effective than a county-wide ordinance for something like this. A lot of what's said is, misrepresentation, and I would invite anybody to come out to the property and take a look at it itself. It's very well maintained, and this comes down to a question of kind of what's fair and what's not fair. And we've gone out of our way to be very fair. So, I've worked as a property manager in Lake County since 2013. It's a decent amount of time. And working here, I've noticed that there's a need for quality housing. One of the things that we do is we bring in new manufactured housing units. In fact, when I was coming up, I saw 2 of our units coming in that we plan on putting into this property. In total, we plan on putting, 50 units into the property. These homes represent a lower priced quality option that can be purchased by retirees looking to downsize or first-time home buyers looking to have their piece of the American dream. To the county, it does represent higher tax base in new property taxes. The property owner invests significantly in developing the mobile home park and bringing in homes. A major concern with the rent control proposal is that it has no exemptions for new manufactured home units that are brought in, making it a less of an incentive to bring in those homes. So therefore, while the proposal is well-intentioned, it's really an anti-housing ordinance for that aspect. The proposal is very restrictive. At 75% of CPI, currently that would mean only a 1% allowable increase. That's extremely restrictive. That makes long-term operations unmanageable and in the face of increasing expenses. It's a misconception that there's not a lot of expenses when it comes to operating a mobile home park. There's a great deal of expenses. And we have a very dedicated staff that works on this every day. So this seems like a misrepresentation from the comments that have been made.
You can
Additionally,
wrap up. Your 3 minutes is, if you can wrap up.
okay, additionally, it also limits turnover rent, preventing investment in remodeling existing homes and reselling them. You know,
You're well past your 3 minutes.
for the reasons that I oppose, the ordinance, and I ask you to vote no on it.
So, sir, it's not, we're not voting on the ordinance or anything today. It's just the discussion of how to move forward. And if we do move forward, if directed so, that'll be an opportunity for stakeholders, for community, and whoever's working on this ordinance to craft it to address some of the things you're discussing.
Thank you.
Any other public input? Public comment, I'm sorry. Okay, I have one coming up. Go ahead.
Tom Lasik. Just a follow-up to what the gentleman just asked, saying it was a mischaracterization. It might be interesting to fact-check just how many evictions were actually issued in the last, say, since they began ownership, and what the industry average is for evictions, and some of the other claims that the residents made. It seems like they're being dismissed by the property manager, and I think that could be easily fact-checked. Who was evicted and what the causes were, and how many there are. There tends not to be that many evictions in the apartment industry as a rule, but from what the residents claimed, it seems to be quite excessive and for spurious reasons. So that might be something that the board might want to take a look at to see where the truth lies. Thank you.
Thank you. There's none more in the chambers. We'll go on to Zoom. It sounds like we have some on Zoom. Yes, Patrick Sullivan, if you can, and considering you're the treasure tax collector, I will exempt you from the 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Crandall. I think I can still be brief on this. Thank you for bringing this forward. I just did have a comment from what I was seeing in here. If I'm following this correctly, all of the enforcement seems to be under the county's purview. I believe there are iterations of this ordinance where there's a private cause of action where the homeowner can actually do some of the enforcement on their own, whether it's solely the homeowner, whether it's solely the county, or whether both have that available to them. I just know we do encounter mobile homes a lot that have tax delinquencies, and I think often time is of the essence when folks are trying to get the relief they need. And I just think it could be valuable to consider a way that the owner himself or herself could bring an action under this ordinance to enforce it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. All right. Matt Davies, if you can unmute, and you'll have your 3 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Hello, Mr. Crandall. You and I have emailed a few times in regards to our mobile home park at Meadow Point, and I did send you an email yesterday.
Yes, I received it.
75% of CPI is a slow road to bankruptcy. We're in the process at Meadow Point Mobile Home Park of talking about investing millions of dollars to rehabilitate the park. If this ordinance passes, I just want to be very clear with everybody, we would not be investing those funds, and we would pivot to what we talked about before in closing the park. We're an 85 space park. We could not survive under this ordinance. We could not make the capital investment. It doesn't work. I think that the other gentleman said it, this all sounds like Lake Village Estates, and it sounds like you folks are targeting using a blunt object on us when a scalpel would do fine. Lake Village Estates does, though, have some of the least expensive rents in the county at under $500. I saw the numbers when they bought it. That park needed to raise the rents to be able to stay in business. They're running a 30% vacancy. They're trying to fill it. You're going to remove every incentive. We've been involved, and we're actually closing a park in Santa Cruz County right now because it's Actually, the rent control's been there 40 years, and our expenses are higher than our income at this point. We're actually losing money, and we can't stay in business any longer. And this would happen at Meadow Point. The other concern I have, you listen to a lot of tenant complaints, but I don't think many people understand that an ordinance only covers very few items. Most of the relief that your residents are asking for, notices, more time to sell, evictions, those are all preempted by state law and Civil Code 798. The county actually has, no counties have say in those things. It's not like you can pass your own just cause. It's all preempted by the state. So the relief that the residents are looking for really can't be given. For example, even pass-throughs. Pass-throughs are governed very explicitly by state law. People act like you're talking about a profit mechanism. That's incorrect. The state law says if you want to pass through, you need to offset their rent by a commensurate amount, and you have a very specific formula you need to follow. You have been given a lot of disinformation here today. I mean, cleanup notices, those have to be issued. We don't issue those for ourselves or to get rid of people. We do it for all the other residents in the park, because part of our job of collecting the rent is make sure the park is clean and safe. And we have bad apples that we need to deal with. And you see the bad apples coming in and complaining about the cleanup notices, but you need to be specific. Go look at that notice that gentleman gave. Go look at his face.
If you can wrap up at 3 minutes.
Okay. In a nutshell, I've covered it. Mr. Crandall, I'd love to sit down and talk with you specifically, though, about Meadow Point, because you're going to be putting a vice around our heads, and I don't know what we're going to do, and I've got to reach out to all the water boards, and I think I might, if you guys are serious, I need to put this on hold now.
No, so Mr. Davies, this is a discussion about the ordinance. It's not passing or not passing today. I don't know if I stated that. Is going to be further direction on what to do from here, and it's not just targeted towards Lake Village Estates. This is in general for the unincorporated area as to what we're looking at. So I do hear you, and that input will be taken into consideration when we move forward, if we move forward to start crafting this ordinance and do a work on it collaboratively.
Then I would say that an ordinance.
So, sir, your 3 minutes are up. So
Can I
if
say
you want
one
to
more
just email me.
sentence to you, Mr.
Next,
Crandall?
let's do the next person. Go ahead and.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, there you go. Saulo
Hi.
Londono.
Yeah,
your name
esteemed
for the record?
supervisors, right? My name is Saulo, and I'm speaking on behalf of WMA. We are an organization that works with mobile home park owners and managers throughout the state of California. We offer education, training, advocacy, etc. We're here today to do two things. First, we'd like to strongly urge against implementing rent control. We've worked with local governments and communities throughout the state. And can speak from experience when I say that passing rent control will destroy this working partnership between elected officials, residents, and your housing providers in Lake County. Like the gentleman that just called you to try to have a conversation about his park. It will immediately create an adversarial relationship between these parties, while severely negatively impacting the basic infrastructure condition of these communities. They have to be upkept. Second, I'd like to ask you to please listen to your housing providers. They're here today and they're alarmed, and you keep telling them that you're not voting on an ordinance, but you have an ordinance on the agenda right now. The way
It's a
these
draft
things are done
ordinance,
is
once again.
before you start a discussion like this, before you put an ordinance in the agenda, you have to have meetings with interested parties. This is their businesses. These are your housing providers. They have just learned about this agenda item in the last 24 hours, and they're very concerned about their ability to continue to operate their business and properly maintain their infrastructure. These housing providers are in most cases family businesses who have been passed down from generation to generation, and they're simply trying to continue to operate their communities, maintain them as a wonderful and safe place to live. Rent control is expensive, okay, and largely unnecessary. The vast majority of park owners in Lake County already offer rental assistance programs to people who struggle to pay rent. In most cases, these residents who have already been informed of these programs choose to ignore them and make the appeal to the government bodies instead. So I urge them to please contact the front office and ask if there's these rental assistance programs available, because the vast majority offer them. And in terms of costs, I mean, a large rent control bureaucracy. I watched your budget discussion. That's the last thing Lake County needs. The program itself costs hundreds of thousands of dollars every year, without counting the extra added costs of all the parties involved when these park owners are forced to go to court for every rent increase to do basic upkeep in their communities. Anyway, thanks so much for your time, but just, these park owners sympathize with struggles and hardships. We just went through a high period of high inflation. We get this, we know this. Fortunately, that stressful period of high inflation is behind us, and we're now back to a more normal level. So it's our hope that this board will not even move in this direction and discuss any ordinance, not just an ordinance that will be negotiated. Do not move in this direction. You're giving investors and housing providers a signal not to invest in this community. Have a good day.
Thank you. And just for the record, 72 hours is when anything that's going to come on the agenda is going to be posted. So it's been 3 or 4 days since this has been noticed, and also it's a draft. The only reason why it was on there is just to give insight as to how it looks, how it's going to look, and what the skeleton will look like. There still needs to be more dialogue and a lot more work to adjust and ensure that we have an ordinance that will work for Lake County. If you have someone else that's on Zoom. Respondent, if you can unmute.
Good afternoon. This is Alan Stevenson. I'm with the ownership group of Lake Village Estates. Before I jump into my comments, I want to emphasize that we would very much welcome the opportunity for fact checking. You heard from a very small group of residents in this park and certainly within the county. We have had 2 evictions in the park in the last 2 years, so that's a fact. But I would welcome any fact checking. But I'm going to focus my brief comments today on the negative aspects of rent control to manufactured home communities and residents. What inevitably happens after rent control is implemented is a substantial and long-term reduction in investment in maintenance, amenities, and capital improvements. The result of this is lower quality parks with poor roads and limited maintenance and management. There are multiple reasons for this. Besides the obvious one of lack of return on investment, a lot of people do not realize that operating expenses often do not track indices like the Consumer Price Index. Over the past several years, the increases to salary and insurance expenses, as well as interest rates, have far exceeded CPI. And while there exist mechanisms in some rent control ordinances to adjust for these situations, these mechanisms rarely get approved and carry substantial risk and costs for the owner, thereby resulting in the default situation which the owner elects not to spend the money in the first place. I was recently in Lancaster, California, which is in LA County. Lancaster is a slightly higher median home price than Lake County, and it has mobile home rent control. I drove almost all the parks in that city and saw the expected poor roads, lower quality maintenance, and poorly maintained homes and lots. Before considering rent control, I would highly encourage each of you to visit similar cities that have implemented rent control to see the results for yourselves. Also, one of the most important and valuable reasons to live in a manufactured home community is the benefit of community. When a park is well maintained and has quality management focused on promoting cleanliness, safety, and maintenance, there's a very substantial ongoing quality of life benefit to all of the residents. With rent control, there becomes multiple classes of tenants within the parks based on those wanting to pay more for better quality of living and amenities and those that do not. I'm actually very surprised that the issue of rent control has come up at this community. We view Lake Village Estates as a very favorable outcome to the residents since our ownership. Since purchasing the park in November 2023, we have made dramatic improvements to all aspects of the community, including the infrastructure, amenities, maintenance, and cleanliness of the asset, all while implementing very moderate increases of $29 one year and $25 the next year. In total, we have spent over $500,000 improving the asset. These changes have resulted in greatly increased home values for the residents and a greatly increased quality of life. Finally, we will likely never sell this community, so we look forward to being good managers and good neighbors
If you
for
can
decades.
wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens, if you can unmute.
Balance is Hi, Board. Nate Stevens here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I am a regional asset manager with Boa Vida Communities over Lake Village. And, Chair Crandall, we briefly met about a year ago. I just wanted to mention overall with the rent control, I think it'll depreciate businesses coming in and wanting to increase the value of the property. I just want to state in the last year and a half of ownership of Lake Village, just some of the improvements on our community that we've been able to do through that, from asphalt seal coating to a clubhouse remodel and kitchen. We've added a business center for our residents, as well as a library. We've been able to also do a third so far of the perimeter fencing on the property, which costs us about $90,000. And then we have plans to finish off that perimeter fencing. We've added a new front entry gate, and as well as solar lights, security cameras that we've added to the property as well. We've brought in so far 6 brand new mobile homes in which we have been able to now recently sell. We have another 6 on order. We have remodeled 6 dilapidated or vacant homes in that time. If there was a rent ordinance in place, these would kill the business. We would not be able to do these substantial property valued increases that we've been able to do. Even at that, our incoming rates are still under the market for the area. I just feel like this proposal of an ordinance would be an absolute business killer. And we are always on board with trying to value. We are long-term ownership, and this will put us in a position to not be able to do that. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Do we have guest, if you can unmute and state your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. My name is Angela Amaral. I just wanted to speak as someone who's responsible for taking care of affairs for a family member and went through many months of trying to find an affordable rental for them. The only affordable option was for me to purchase a mobile home in a park. This park was converted from a senior only to an all ages a few years ago. And the space rent in that time frame went from, the space rent varies greatly from people that were there previously from $450 a month to I'm currently paying $715 a month. So just to show you guys the price of the increase when these new people move in to older mobile homes that cannot be moved out of the park. Another vulnerability is that if a mobile home owner could afford to move their mobile home, it's highly unlikely that the owner will be able to find a new mobile home park that they would be able to move into due to the age restrictions on mobile homes. The Senior Services Director provided some concerning statistics about our older homeless population. Also, Santa Barbara, as I stated in an email to each of you, Santa Barbara County found a big enough concern to institute an ordinance similar to this to protect their seniors in mobile home parks. And Supervisor Crandall, or maybe someone there can clarify this, but I believe senior park owners get a property tax deduction for operating a senior park, right? But they're still increasing the prices to the seniors. I think this is a good conversation. Thank you, Supervisor Crandall, for listening to your constituents, and I hope you all strongly consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. What's that? Andy, if you can unmute.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Andy Carey. I'm president of Monolith Properties, and been involved in Lake County for real estate for about 19 years. We operate and manage a number of mobile home parks in the unincorporated county, have for a long time. Our rent increases have been tempered and moderate each and every year. And I've got a considerable amount of experience in other jurisdictions around California, working cooperatively with boards of supervisors in different counties and city councils in certain cities. And while I won't, I'm of course opposed to the rent control ordinance for the reasons I mentioned in the emails I sent to each of you. I do want to just leave you with one idea for consideration, since, as you mentioned, this is draft and for discussion purposes, is the ordinance seems like it's at the end of a very long process and we haven't done the interim steps yet, where we've had great success in other counties. Generally has to do with kind of taking a committee or collaborative approach with different stakeholders that's maybe run by one or two board members as a special committee or a special working group, where a lot of these issues can be discussed and better communicated between park owner stakeholders and residents alike. And we know that for every issue that's out there, but we've had great success doing that elsewhere. It's the least costly for the county itself because it's voluntary and it's attended by members of the resident community and members of the ownership community. And we just found it to be a really great interim step that has solved a lot more problems than it's created. And so I hope the board, as it's considering its next steps, might consider kind of hitting the pause button on the ordinance and looking into alternatives to improve communications and do some of the fact checking we talked about. I've heard a number of wrong claims just in the last hour or so. So I just want to say that there's a bunch of information that probably needs to be clarified for all the stakeholders, and a working group could do that. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Respondent? If they've already spoke, responded if you, I think they just probably have their.
We've got two people sitting in the same room, that's why. So I hope that's fine.
Okay.
My name's Eli Weiner, and I represent the Boa Vita Communities. We manage 3 properties in Lake County, and there are a couple things I want to talk about. Just a couple things. There's no tax credit for a senior park, so that wasn't true. There was one gentleman that said he got a 7-day notice and this and that. It was actually, just to let you know, our company does not tolerate homophobic slurs. So that might give you some sort of understanding of, the gentleman that was speaking about, how we're not.
Can we stick to the ordinance, please?
Stick to the ordinance.
Yeah. Okay, so Lake County has a lot of mobile home parks, and they have one of the highest percentage of empty spaces, probably in most counties in California. And, we operate over 85 parks in California. Now, for an operator to come in and make an investment in that county, basically, when you drive through a park and you see a bunch of vacant spaces, you need someone to look at that park and say, okay, well, I'm going to take money out of my own pocket and go to the factory, buy a home, bring it in, get it set up, and hope and pray that you can actually get it occupied. And you're either going to offer it for rent or for sale. You're going to add to the housing supply. And that's something that we've done in multiple properties in Lake County. And that's something that we've done here at Lake Village. And made a big investment that you've heard from one of our other speakers here. So hopefully you guys will look at that and say, well, that's the type of investment that we need in Lake County, because we have a lot of dilapidated properties. We have a lot of properties that are dying on the vine. In fact, this is one where the ownership had it and become so complacent, and the other speakers, they know this too, because a lot of these, people inherit these parks and they don't do anything. Well, the other people that called, including us, we go in and we spend money on these properties and we upgrade these properties. And that's a beautiful thing. And that is helping all the neighboring properties. That's helping the communities. That's driving additional tax revenue. So hopefully we won't be punished for, maybe not making a safe investment in Lake County. That because I would think that you'd want people to come in with money and spend the money on the properties and make them better. And really, we're talking about a $29 rent increase 1 year, and then another year we did a $25.
3 minutes, if you can wrap up, please.
Yeah, so those rent increases are kind of, it's, honestly, it's very, it's weird for us to even be having the conversation when we're talking about those type of rent
All right,
increases.
so you've had your 3 minutes, and we asked you to wrap up, and you're continuing, so we'll move on to the next person. There's no more hands in Zoom? All right, if there's anyone else in the chambers, I don't know if I missed anyone. All right, not hearing any, we will go ahead and close public input at this time and discuss further. I think it's really important for me to hear. I know that there's a lot of focus on the group that came here, but there are others. There are others in different parks that have talked to me about this. They either can't make it because of work, they just aren't coming because they don't come to meetings. They just, maybe some are afraid. I won't speak for anyone else's district because I don't know how it works over there. I just know that in my district, I want to make sure and advocate for this. I know that I know there was a mention of a group that in Lucerne. Prior to them is where I met with some folks in that park. It was owned by a different owner then. Similar complaints, but I've been having discussions with tenants for quite some time that have called me or emailed me about this very thing. And so I know one of the focuses that I want to make sure to emphasize is senior citizens, disabled veterans. I'm not looking to handcuff every single park or anything like that when it comes to, all ages, if you will. I do worry that doing that will, there'll be some rush to not do any senior mobile parks as well, because then they'll know that it's going to affect their profitability and whatnot. And I think the worry that I have as well is the senior population having groups come in and basically put us in a position to not have any housing for seniors. So I think there's a workable way with this. I know there's a lot of passion around it on both sides, but I think that's how we get the dialogue started and have these discussions. Supervisor Pyska?
Well, I appreciate you bringing this up. We have had a lot of conversations about housing, and we have a need for housing. We also have a duty to look for ways to protect vulnerable populations and make sure that there aren't any predatory practices happening. But I do have a lot of experience with rent control and being a landlord in rent-controlled properties. And there are a lot of unintended consequences. Some of them have been brought up today. And we also have to balance this need for safe, secure, and stable housing, and also allow people to have a decent investment on their property. So that is the balance that we have to look for with policy. I think your recommendation to take this as a starting point, to have a lot of conversations with our housing deputy, with the community members, with the ownership, to try and figure out what we can work toward. Because as it's written today, if you cap CPI to 75% with 5%, property taxes go up 2% a year. And then you have insurance, which we all are dealing with, and you have other increases. So we can't, we can't hinder people's ability to also improve their property or take away that incentive to want to improve their property. So these are a lot of the unintended consequences that come out of an ordinance like this. So I just really be in favor of using this as a starting point to have these conversations and look for ways to find that balance.
Vice Chair, and then...
Yeah, thank you for the conversation. There's no question, housing needs in our county are critical, in particular for everybody, but in particular for the vulnerable groups, the seniors, veterans, disabled, and hence why I think we're working on the HAPE plan that is going forward. Any discussions or follow-up we have, I would would like to see our housing staff highly involved in. I know this is just a draft ordinance, but my big concerns are implementing it and basically causing future investments to go away and cease. That's the big concern I have. I feel like there's a lot of questions that probably don't have answers to. I don't know what the rents typically are increasing in these parks are per year. I'm aware of, in a little bit of research I had time to do, maybe 3% or 5% per year. I don't really know, but I've definitely got concerns about moving forward with an ordinance right now for the primary reason, again, of causing any future investment in housing to cease, and it could possibly make the situation worse if we get parks that they were going to bring in 6 new homes and now they're not going to bring in any. So I think that's a concern. I have a question about who in the county would manage and coordinate this. I don't know if we know what department would be kind of in charge of the enforcement, but that's something that would need to be figured out too, I believe, if we had an ordinance. But I would say, I guess, where I'm at this point is, without committing that we are going to do an ordinance, is starting a conversation with the appropriate stakeholders, being the park owners as well as the residents that are there, homeowners and or renters, anybody that has a stake in it, kind of getting more information. That's where I'd kind of want to be before I wanted to talk about whether or not we were going to pass an ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Owen?
I had, when Rob Brown was here earlier, I talked, and it looks like I talked to him about this very thing. They had addressed it a few years ago. Our predecessors had, and they'd actually formed a committee, and they said that they looked into it for about 3 years. And ultimately, where there's a yin, there's a yang. So you're trying to write it for somebody and you're hurting somebody else. I am afraid of government getting involved in free market. I think that the market will kind of level itself, and it sounds like, a 29 and a 25% increase. I'd like to ask, is that what you guys are receiving, like an increase of $25 a year, $29 a year? Yes. And in all honesty,
We've closed public input.
so in reality, the cost of insurance, the cost of fuel, the cost of the upkeep, and labor prices have went up dramatically over the last few years as well. So I'm afraid to cause harm to this housing industry, meaning the mobile home parks, where they cannot operate or cannot operate well. And I understand people on a fixed income, and I'm hoping, what I liked hearing was that there were vouchers available often at the housing offices. So if you can check into that. Somebody had mentioned mobile home office, look for rental assistant programs that can help offset maybe if they're going up, and that might be an avenue. But to be honest, I'm kind of afraid that we end up shooting ourselves in the foot by government stepping in to regulate. So that's my fear. And on the other hand, where Angela had called in and stated that hers went up from $450 to $715, that's a major increase. $25 I'm not looking at as a major increase. So, I'm not sure. I'm not saying that maybe we shouldn't look into it, but right now I am afraid of causing other issues where we have less low-income housing, is what I'm afraid is going to happen.
Supervisor Sabatier?
This one's tough. Thank you very much for bringing this,
Yes,
Chair
thank you.
Crandall. There is no doubt that the last 5 or 6 years has been quite life-changing for many people, with the cost of electricity, the cost of propane, the cost of just everyday purchases that increases the burden on the renter, the homeowner, and increases the burden on the landowner as well. We're not helping anybody in what's been happening to us in the last decade or half decade even. I struggle to see this. We have a problem. Fixed income folks are absolutely getting much more burdened by what's happening than those that are not on fixed income, where they're capable to try to upgrade or achieve the next level of financing for their lifestyle, whatever. I've also had experience as a landlord, and I think there's a difference between having some places to rent and 85 statewide where you don't have the same relationship with the tenants. And I think it's important that landlords have relationships with their tenants because it is a human need and there is a human factor to the decisions you make as a landlord. One of the things that I keep thinking about is we are not in charge of mobile home parks. That's HCD. I know that we just passed a tobacco ordinance because ATF does not care that we had stores selling to our minors and nothing happened, nothing changed. So we made our own ordinance to try and deal with that. Maybe it's time we look at, do we need to do oversight of some of these mobile home parks rather than allowing the state to do it, which maybe they're just not doing it, and there's not the quality of life that could be in some of these parks where there may be less complaints. I don't know. We have such a hands-off scenario when there is government involved in mobile home parks. Let's be real. This is not completely private enterprise. There is government hands within this. So maybe there is something, but the way that I read this, I'm concerned. I think there is some concern about the fair review process or whatever it was called, the fair return standard. I think Vice Chair Rasmussen mentioned the cost that will be, who's going to take charge of that? Are we going to pass that cost on to the mobile home parks, which in turn may increase their rents again? Because there's got to be a way to balance that out. So I have concerns on doing this, and I will just say, if we prioritize today saying we want admin to focus on senior housing, which we know there's going to be an increase. We've had a AAA report, increase in seniors that are happening. We know that there are homelessness is happening at a higher age level than before and rapidly growing. If that's our focus to make sure that there is better opportunities and more opportunities, I'd say let's do that. But I'm struggling on this one because I also don't want to trip us up where we don't solve a problem and just feel like we're solving a problem, because I'm not sure that I see the solution within the draft. It's not an ordinance for us to vote on, as you stated, but I'm not sure that I see the solution, but there is definitely a problem that our people, our community members are struggling with, and I don't know what that answer is. So if that's the conversation that we kind of open up with, here's our problem, not here's a solution, let's talk about that solution, but really open the scope. And I believe, if you don't mind my calling up Rachel Dillman-Parsons, our Director of Social Services, there may be some other programs that could be available that wasn't talked about. How do we bolster those programs? How do we enhance those programs to make sure our seniors have access to some of those things? So difficult topic, difficult response, since I don't know what the solution is, but thank you for bringing this.
The solution, it wasn't obviously to do the ordinance. I know I said I wanted to, but then realized that there's a lot more that goes into this. As you know, as you've all seen, the ordinances that's in draft form obviously caught the attention of many of the owners, who are now giving input, whereas one had stated that there's rental assistance programs and whatnot. So hopefully moving forward, there can be something in place where they can talk about these things. And it's not just about one specific park. It's about all, and having a mechanism so that they're working in collaboration to, they understand what this ordinance could be you know, that's kind of like, I hate to say it, but this is a way for me to catch their attention. Because there are vulnerable communities that are suffering from this, and it's not just this group. I worry also just hearing some of the comments from the owners and the marginalization in folks and in this whole situation. And it makes me wonder if anyone is going to be targeted. So I feel like there's a looming issue, standing issue. So that's why I really want to move on this some way, shape, or form, whether it be a group that works with me or whether I call together some of these stakeholders to come meet with me, ad hoc or of some sort. I know that staff has a lot to do. I understand that. I don't want to, I know that when I started this discussion, I reached out to Lisa, which then in discussion, further discussion, I realized Rachel, the Social Services Director, this was under more of her purview. And so there's already been like other recommendations and statements about what we should be doing, what we should be looking at. And that also would include further discussions with the stakeholders. If we can control the phone. All right. So that's what I'm looking for. It sounds like you all are okay with further discussions and not having an ordinance right off the top, and that's not what I'm looking for. I know that the ordinance is on the agenda, but it's not something that, I know obviously we can't bring forward without further protocol. So, yeah, so I'm just looking to do something like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of envisioning it as, if this makes sense, that you.
Your mic, sorry.
Sorry, definitely you and possibly another supervisor could work with the appropriate staff, as I see it being Ms. Judd and Ms. Parsons, Mrs. Parsons, regarding some of these issues to see if, we can start some more stakeholder discussion.
Right.
That's kind of where
Right.
I'm thinking it would work.
And I know that, you all have other things to do too, and so that's why I wasn't gonna push for any of you all to be like, I know that you have your due diligence and other things, but if there was another supervisor willing to be on this with me, that would be great, the more the better, and the more that we can move to a solution, the better, So.
Go ahead.
Oh, you have your pen up. I wasn't even there yet.
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Owen.
I think, Rachel Parson, I'm going to ask you really quick. I know that you had some vouchers, I believe, that were still available for rent. Could those be broken down into smaller pieces for when the rents have to go up and it gets above a certain percentage of what they're paying? Can they take smaller increments? If it goes up $25, you can cover some of those and it be spread out further?
No, unfortunately, that's not how the voucher program works. And the vouchers don't always cover your whole rent. It's based on your income, and then it'll pay a portion of that towards your rental assistance. And the 6 I have available right now are for veterans, and the referrals would come to us through Veterans Services. There are some other grants out there I've just kind of been sussing out, so I'm very happy to participate in a work group if you want me to.
Could we look at something along that where if their rent starts to raise, that they could, those that qualify financially, they could get assistance to cover that, to offset?
Many things are possible, not under the Section 8 voucher program, but there could be other grants out there we could pursue that would allow us to do that. We can certainly research and look into it.
Thank you.
Right. Supervisor, about you.
And while you and I may or may not have perfect common ground on this subject, I'd be happy to be involved in the conversation if that works for you.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. So if I know that, Director Dillman Parsons said she'd be glad to be a part of it, I think that's a good start. I don't know, Lisa, would you be willing? She's nodding her head yes, so I think that would be a good start, right? And go from there. You guys are on board with that?
Yeah.
Susan, you have anything to add? No? Okay.
Consensus.
Right. Okay, thank you. So with that, I will reach out. Well, yes, please.
If I may just add, thank you,
I want you
Maria
to
Turner,
add, sorry.
Community Development Director. Since the only department listed as responsible for anything in that draft ordinance is community development, I'd actually appreciate being part of that
Oh,
work
yes,
group as well.
yes. I just did, I don't know why I
Thank you.
didn't think of that, sorry. I seen it, but I just, yeah, slipped my mind. Lloyd?
So, just to add, Mr. Chair, thank you. For the formation of this working group, if it is deemed as an ad hoc committee, that actually can be formed either by chair directive, that would be you, by
Okay.
being the chair, or by action of the Board of Supervisors. So, membership has been, if it's, seems like this is an ad hoc committee of sorts, you could, your board can approve that today by motion or by your own directive pursuant to the County of Lake policies and procedures.
It looks like we have a consensus, so if someone wants to motion that, or you want me to just implement the ad hoc, I can do that too.
As the chair,
Yeah.
use the power.
So I will give the directive to implement an ad hoc committee to procure a reasonable stabilization ordinance and look further into the discussion of senior mobile home parks. CAO? Yes.
Yes, sir. I would recommend that we don't limit it to the ordinance,
Okay.
but to look at broader, different HCD programs, grants. I mean, an ordinance, don't hurt me, may not be needed if we can supplement any of the gaps with other means and other resources.
So have a more broad name for the ad hoc.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
And yeah, I agree with that. I was going to suggest maybe removing that language that it's, because we haven't decided we are going to do an ordinance and it's just starting as a discussion. So
Right.
it would be more of a broad discussion to include any thing related to these housing issues.
All right. I think that can be accommodated. It seems like that's what the board wants. Yeah, so with that, does that cover? Okay. All right, we don't need a motion then. We just need to set a date. And I'll reach out and we'll set a date on that. All right. And thank you, Maria, for reminding me. All right, so I'll be reaching out on that. We'll close this item.
We should need a break.
Yeah, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. So we'll come back at 2:20.
It's very, yeah,
I thought I was just high on sugar.
All right, welcome back from our break. We'll move on to item 6.6, consideration of a report from Municipal Resource Group on your board's March 21st, 2025 training workshop on general governance, priority development, and organizational effectiveness. And we have Matthew Rothstein here.
Matthew.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Matthew Rothstein, Chief Deputy County Administrative Officer. And Johanna, if you don't mind displaying the slides. As you're aware, on March 21, 2025, your board engaged in a training workshop focused on general governance, priority development, and organizational effectiveness, hosted by Robert Bendorf of Municipal Resources Group. We're grateful to Mr. Bendorf for a high-quality training experience and facilitated discussion. And the intent of that workshop was solely to provide background for your board's consideration toward future policy direction. No board action was taken during the March 21, 2025 training workshop. Next slide. Mr. Bendorf since provided a summary report of that day's discussion, which includes documentation of your boards and gathered department heads' communicated expectations regarding the role of county administrative officer. And Mr. Bendorf also indicated that the roles and duties of top county executives, whether identified as a county administrative or executive officer, are typically codified in local ordinance. Presently, Article 1, Section 2-1.7 of the County Code notes the following. Direction of county operation, the setting of policy, shall be by action of the Board of Supervisors, with implementation through the department heads and overview by the county administrative coordinator, and understood to be the county administrative officer. Your board provided no direction to staff during the workshop to bring forward an ordinance clarifying the county executive's role, and administration expects that members of your board would wish for there to be an inclusive process that engages county department heads and others prior to introduction and presentation of any such ordinance. During the workshop, your board was also introduced to a model for priority setting and strategic planning, and examples of how focus areas contained within your board's existing Vision 2028 priority statement could be developed into specific strategic priorities and action items were discussed during the workshop and subsequently wordsmithed by Mr. Bendorf. The slides that are presented today and the documents that are included with your board packet are examples only. For clarity, they're ideas and do not represent final decision making. Today, your board is invited to discuss Mr. Bendorf's report, and you may also consider providing direction to staff. For example, does your board desire any further information toward consideration of executive leadership models? As noted in Mr. Bendorf's report, members of your board seemed to support identification of more granular deliverables associated with Vision 2028, and you likewise had the opportunity to engage an example model. As referenced by Mr. Bendorf, strategic planning holistically is a detailed process, typically involving all department heads, potentially a survey of the community, and development or refreshment of vision and purpose or mission statements, with a plan to communicate strategies throughout the organization and with the public. So again, in terms of potential direction to staff, would you like administration to gather further information on strategic planning options? We're looking forward to your board's discussion and direction.
Supervisor Sabatier?
So a couple of things. One, absolutely 150% we needed a strategic plan yesterday, and so interested in moving forward with that. I think that will help not just us to streamline our efforts, but also future boards, because a good strategic plan should not completely flip-flop from one day to the other. It is a living document, but at least it can help provide guidance on direction for the future. So 100% I think we should get on that, and I personally don't think a strategic plan is a difficult task. I'd love to see that done internally and not pay for somebody to do that. We know the county the best. We know what we want to see. I don't think we need to pay somebody to ask us what we would like to see and then put it all together for us. As far as changing the county administrator, I have no interest in changing the current recipe that we're following. But I do have interest in looking at, is there opportunities in consolidating departments? I think that would be a streamlining experiment that I'd like to take a look at. I don't know what the budgeting differences would look like. I don't know what the position allocation differences would look like. So it's not something that let's make it happen. It's more of let's do an exploratory look at what that would look like and what would be the pros and cons of moving forward with some of that, because I think there's a lot of different potential areas that can look at consolidation. I think that's all that I wanted to say on that. Yeah, I hit the points.
Vice Chair, go ahead.
Yeah, starting with the strategic plan, yes, I'm in favor of having that, completing that. I think we have a good starting point. I think we've done a lot of work, and you know, the stuff that came out of the Vision 2028, there's still a lot of pertinent things in there that are important to our county, and I think we need to get that as soon as we can, for one. As far as the leadership model, I'm in favor of investigating this. One of the big pieces for me is, however, before we make any decisions, I want to have input and involvement from all of our department heads. I know we have 5 elected officials, which they wouldn't be part of any change because they're independently elected, but I'd still like input from them, as well as the other 20 or so departments that we have. I think our role as supervisors is policymakers and being at the high level. I don't think it's necessarily in our purview to be focusing on supervision and management. I think we're more in the position to be looking at policy and holding an executive accountable to carry out the direction that the board sets. If we set the direction, then, we expect our CEO to go out there and make sure that direction happens and hold everybody else accountable. I think there's some inefficiencies in the current way we're doing business, so I'm definitely in favor in looking at it, but I think there's a lot of discussions that happen. I wouldn't be ready to make a decision today on changing a leadership model, but I really want to hear what our departments and what the public has to say. I mean, there is public comment out there about it. It's come up for me before, and I have talked to a couple department heads, so I know there's thoughts out there that I want to get. I know it can get complex because the law states that about 7 of our department heads, not counting the CEO and the county council, which I think would always work for the board. I think there's about 6 or 7 other departments that the law says that the board shall not delegate their authority away, but I think if the board wants to, I think they have the ability to delegate supervision and management to a CEO while still retaining final authority and responsibility. I know there's a lot of counties that do it that way. And then the other thing that I think is important is I don't want to have different supervision models for different department heads. I think if we're going to make a change, we need to treat everyone the same and have the same model going. In other words, I don't want to have half the department heads reporting to a CEO and the other half reporting to the Board of Supervisors. I think that would be a lot more problematic. So just kind of my thoughts right now. I think it's something that we should explore to see if it could be more effective for us. Thank you.
Supervisor Pyska.
Yeah, I'm all in agreement for strategic planning, and I agree with Vice Chair. I think we're at a point in time in our organization that we have grown a lot, and I think it's worth investigating our leadership model to explore, hybrid options. It's something that's maybe custom for us with the input of all of our department heads. Because, I mean, take these board meetings, for example. We have them every Tuesday. We're one of the only counties in the state of California that have board meetings every Tuesday. And every Tuesday, we are here from 9 until all of the staff have already gone home. And then we have our department heads spending all of their time planning around our meetings. And then they're sitting with us in our meetings. And I have talked to them, and these meetings are burning them out and taking away from the work that they need to be doing and to be providing services and developing programs and doing what we've asked. But then we are holding them back. So it wasn't always like this. Board meetings did not always go on, weren't as long as they are today. I think we've lost a lot of the public. We have 2 very dedicated members that come here, but that's pretty much it. There was a time when people came and watched our meetings and paid attention because they were a couple hours long. And I think this is a place where we really need to focus on efficiencies so that we're supporting our staff and we're able to accomplish the things that we are setting out as priorities. I don't know what that looks like. I think it's really worth exploring with department heads and staff to figure out what could work for us.
So, in discussing this topic, especially with regard to strategic plan, I know we've had that 2018, 2028 vision, visioning. I know that predates all of us. We weren't a part of that. It gave us a trajectory, but I think having something that focuses on specifics and gives us the opportunity to craft it. Knowing that eventually another group of leaders eventually are elected and they'll come forward and, readjust it as well. So, I'm on board with the strategic plan. As for the leadership, I know that was a big discussion in the workshop, and I know other counties do specific things. We're all unique. All of our counties are unique. Some are big counties, some have staff, some have, all these different aspects of things. But I'm willing to discuss a hybrid model. I know that sometimes drastic change it gets too overwhelming and we go too far, or we go too or we don't do enough. So if we can have a discussion that gets us into a comfortable or amenable way to move forward with that, I'm willing to do so. I know at times it would behoove us to have one directive or one person to give the directive, but then at the same time, there's got to be a balance for it. So I know that there's other counties similar to ours that have that model, but I think it would be a good idea to have the discussion about a hybrid. And then I see your pen's up, Supervisor Owen.
Yes. I kind of like the model that we have currently. I think that we are hired to...
Microphone.
I'm sorry. Okay, I kind of like the model that we have right now. But I haven't experienced the other model either. But as of right now, I kind of like it because I feel like we're really hands-on as supervisors, which I think is really important. And I don't mind being here every week. I figure I'm collecting a salary, I should be here, So I don't mind being here. I know that we've talked to many of the other supervisors in other districts, and they do twice a month, I don't know how they do it. They have much bigger counties than we do, but they do. But I kind of like it. As far as the strategic plan, I think that's really important. And as I'd like to echo what Supervisor Sabatier has mentioned about doing it in-house rather than paying for it to be done, I think that would be shrewd. Perhaps some ad hocs committees for each of those topics. I know that, let me see. I can't find it really quick. But infrastructure, for instance, having a little ad hoc for infrastructure, getting that in place, what we're needing, and bringing the department heads in those areas forward onto those ad hocs would probably behoove us. But I do like the idea of having the, having us do it in-house rather than hiring it out.
You have, oh, okay. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chair. In relation to the strategic planning, since we have been working on the CIP, which we would have to do first anyhow before we even started strategic planning, I think we can accommodate that internally. Thank you, Stephen, for volunteering to take that on.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I don't think that we're going to steer away from having weekly meetings for sure by any means, because I know that there's still a lot to do. I do at times, I don't know, maybe I'm not getting the right vibe, but at times I feel like when I'm working with some of the directors that they do feel overwhelmed with us at times. So I know that there's got to be something that we can do to give them a little more leeway to do their work. You know, but there is a benefit to having a connection as well. So that's why I'm saying a hybrid or a discussion on that. But I do feel you on them being here all the time and having to.
I see some
deal with
nodding.
this, yeah. But you know, within arm's reach, you know. But again, we'll have that discussion further. I don't know who was first, so you guys.
I think it was me. I just want to make sure, and I'm sure it's on the CAO's list, that we have the budget information too. If we make a change, what is it going to cost, potentially? Because I don't know if that's going to require additional staff in the admin office. I definitely want to make sure we're looking at, in addition to all the reasons that we may or may not want to do it, but how much is the budget impact too, I think is another important piece that we have in front of us before we make any decisions. Thank you.
Supervisor Spatier.
So, just a thought. I hear you. I see people in the back. I think if it's a specific item coming from a department head, they shouldn't be untimed. That way, there's a specific time that they'll never go before that, and we'll make sure that it's after that. If it's something we bring up or something that's not specific to a department, then I think at that point you can put it. I think we need to rework how our agendas maybe are put together, because untimed, I'll just point out behavioral health because that's who I see and who we see the majority of the time back there. Untimed means any time, and if it was timed, then at that point that would be a little easier on knowing at least never before that specific time. I do want to ask the rest of the board if there's interest in continued discussion at looking at consolidating departments into super agencies. We have health services, social services, behavioral health. Would that be better if they were under one umbrella? We have infrastructure departments. Would that be better if they were under one umbrella? Some of these are done differently in different counties, just looking at, again, the pros and cons, and if there's interest in looking at some of those types of changes as well.
Go ahead, Supervisor Pyska, then you'll go.
Okay. I'm okay with looking at it, but I feel like it's a little bit off the topic of what we're looking at for this part of leadership. But if it comes up in conversation with department heads, you know, I guess it's worth exploring. I just want to make sure that we're staying focused on this agenda item, which has been pushed how many times this summer because our meetings ran too long, and you know, we're running out of time on Tuesdays. And I don't mind being here, and I think we should keep having weekly meetings. But I do know that staff has to spend an incredible amount of time prepping for the meeting, you know, there's a lot that goes in to getting ready for today and not just sitting here today. So I think those are the areas where we really need to look at where we can be more efficient. So I'm okay with looking at that kind of broadly, but I don't want it to deviate from the conversation that we've been trying to have around this for a long time.
Supervisor Owen?
You know, I think that's a pretty interesting concept, and I think it's worth looking into as far as consolidating, and there may be some redundancy going on within a few that are closely related that we might be able to make better use of that time where we don't have 2 or 3 departments working kind of simultaneously on something similar. So I think it's definitely worth looking at. Bringing, obviously, the department heads in to talk about it and letting them have some input on how this would look.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, I don't know 100% what that would look like, but I do think that if we're having this other conversation, it does make sense to add it in as far as that consolidation to talk about it and see what it potentially would look like. But again, I want the primary focus to where I'm at to be first on the overall leadership model. And then if we are talking about any consolidation, again, I want to have heavy amount of input from department heads and see what their thoughts are. Because they're the ones that run it and they know, I don't know, what their operations look like. They're the experts, so, but I'm happy to add it in for the discussion.
I think too, just being a part of the board since 2019, there have been, different variances here and there of our style. But one thing that is consistent is turnover. Another thing that's consistent is just the amount of time spent on specific projects that haven't been, that don't have the funding or don't have the resources to finish them out. There's quite a bit. So it's not at the fault of the departments themselves. I think a lot of it is, I wouldn't say necessarily even the structure per se, but it's part of it. So I think it's a good, in all aspects, it's good to have this discussion because to fine tune it, to make it work is important. Not that it's not working, but it's not working more optimal that we could, So all of this is important. I want to be able to help adjust that benefits and it gives them the opportunity to thrive. I also don't want to limit and take away from specific directors as well, because right now, it's not just because. What if we decide to collaborate departments? What happens now? We're losing a director, or is that the discussion we're going to have later? Because that's the thing too. I don't. Yeah, if I'm in staff right now, I'm going to feel worried. Hearing that. So again, I know that there's room there's opportunity and room for tightening and making things more up to date, if you will, just what works for now, because we've tried the same thing for quite some time, and it's been legacy practice. So if we can figure out a way to work in a more efficient way, that'd be helpful. And of course, listening to our staff give us some insight that would help as well, because they might know what helps them more, or what redundancies we have in place that are hindering. So yeah, I just figured I'd add that. Did you have yours up, or I know you do.
Go ahead.
I appreciate that you mentioned Vision 2028 and the fact that none of us were there for that.
Yeah.
I would like to offer, as we do the strategic plan, if we can have an updated vision and maybe translate that to Vision 2050 to match our general plan vision. That way, again, it's got that long-term date and it can be a living document that can be morphed as time moves on. But I think I would like to see if we can maybe reboot and start from scratch, because 2028 is literally around the corner versus when it started in 2018.
CAO, you turn on your mic.
I did.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Respectfully, what I'd like to do, since we don't have the CIP done yet, and what we're trying to do is get this done in a fairly short period of time, bring it back to the board. I'm referring to the strategic plan. Then we have a base, and we can, when we start to go the long time distance, and I don't know when the general plan will be completed, and Maria, you don't have to share at this point in time, but I don't want to stall the strategic planning element. That'll help us with the base. It's easy update, and then we add to that if it's 2050, or you generally don't go that long in a strategic plan. You usually do maybe 10 years, because it's hard to project funding revenues and resources beyond 10 years. Actually, it's really difficult even to do 5 years. So that's just my suggestion.
And I was just speaking of the vision 2028, updating that as well, not 2050 strategic plan. That's too long.
Yeah, it's that there has to be synergy between your vision and your strategic planning. You have a vision without deliverables, and we are working on the CIP, so I think it's a good merge document.
And just as a final comment, that's why I was mentioning redoing the vision, because none of us were part of that vision. And if we're building a strategic plan around a vision that none of us were necessarily a part of building, that's why I was offering that opportunity to reboot.
All right. Anything else to add before I open?
No, go ahead.
I have one thing. One of the reasons
Okay.
I'm kind of for, thank you. One of the reasons I'm kind of for the current model for leadership is I found it really interesting when we were at the governance training that they had stated the average expectancy of a CEO was something like 3 years?
3 to 5 years, I think.
3 to 5 years. Whereas we had ours in place for many years. Prior to this, we've had them going back, like Kelly Cox was in there for 30 years or something, you know? So the retention difference between the CEO and the CAO model seemed to be a big difference on retention. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
CEO?
I can speak to that very clearly. I worked and mentored in Glendale, Arizona, and there's someone who had 25 years. That is not the current business trend in municipal government, municipal or county government. It is 5 to 7 years, and it's because of the political nature of the position. It just isn't the way it used to be, just FYI. But I appreciate your comment.
All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Come on up and speak 3 minutes. And
Good afternoon, Tom Lasik. I don't usually talk about it, but once upon a time I actually had a job. And it was a good job, and it was in a budget in the 9 figures. And we operated under a CEO model. It actually was a hybrid model. We called it a program office, which would be the municipal equivalent of a CAO, but we also had a chain of command. And I see the parallels every time I sit there and see what you guys are going through and what staff is going through. The easy thing I would like to comment is, yes, you need a strategic plan. And my observation is seeing how the general plan and the local area plans evolved. It was not typical from my experience. And I think it ended up being more difficult and than it really needed to be. As it pertains to the CEO model, there is no perfect solution. You will probably be better off with a hybrid. I think you'll find having the direct connects with directors when you need to have that connectivity is going to be critical. But then for the day-to-day churn of what needs to happen and the deliverables, a CAO runs a lot of interference and for the board. How you organize yourself really depends on your culture, how you decide to operate as a unit. But there is CEO, going from CAO to CEO isn't going to solve your problem. Sticking with CAO isn't going to solve your problem. There is no perfect solution. In fact, in our company, about every 3 years, we would swing the pendulum completely the other way and then swing it back. The retention of having a program office or we have a CAO is that stability and longevity. You do get consistency, repeatability. You have good process that you can establish. The advantage of having a CEO framework is that you can have direct connect. And if you don't like something, you can actually step in and you can cut through a lot of layers. So again, from someone that used to actually have a job and sees many of the things that you're going through and appreciates very much so all the effort that you put into it and what staff puts into it. I actually prefer having a CAO to do a lot of the heavy lifting, but the CEO still needs to be there. You still need to have direct authority for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers?
Good afternoon, Board. Margot Kambara. Just a suggestion or two. In terms of preserving staff resources and consideration of staff time, what I've noticed as a member of the public is that there are it's rather common to have an item continued. And if we could have more, I don't know, more stable scheduling of topics, especially these weighty topics that contain hundreds of pages of reports, that might help staff plan out their workload in terms of when they have to be available for your questions or to prepare executive summaries, et cetera. But also, as a member of the public, I think we would get more engagement if these weighty reports and these weighty topics, if we could have advance notice of, hey, such and such a topic is penciled in for such and such a date. That would give the public some heads up and saying, well, yeah, I'm really interested in that topic and I do want to read up on that. So for your consideration, I know it's not the main thread of your conversations here, but if you're talking about streamlining and more public engagement and preserving staff resources and resource time, think of your agenda and building your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public input? Public comment, I'm sorry, I keep saying input, that's at the beginning. All right, bring it back to the board. It sounds like we have the direction. Is there more that you need to clarify? No? No? Or no?
No, I think we got a yes for all three
All right.
possibilities.
All right. Just want to make sure. All right, with that, if we have the direction we need, we can close this item. All right, and we now will be going into closed session, so I'm going to read those off. 8.1, Public Employee Evaluations Title, Special Districts Administrator. 8.2, Conference with Legal Counsel, Existing Litigation Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, FERC Proceeding Number P77, Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project. 8.3, Sitting as the Board of Directors of the Lake County IHSS Public Authority Conference with a Chief Negotiator M. Long, County Negotiator R. Dillman Parsons, A. Shemansky, K. Page, and B. Employee Organizations Service Employees International Union Local 2015. 8.4, Public Employee Appointment Pursuant to Government Code, Section 54957B1, Interviews for Interim Public Works Director, Appointment of Interim Public Works Director, and then there is our extra, let's see, consideration of closed session, Public Employee Appointment Pursuant to Government Code, Section 54957B1, Interviews for Animal Control Director, Appointment of Animal Control Director. With that, we'll go into closed session. CAO?
Please read 8.5, please,
Oh.
addendum.
Yeah, sorry. The addendum, conference with legal counsel, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2E1, one potential case. I totally missed that. Thank you. All right, with that, we will go into closed session and we'll be coming out a little later.